You were not meant to arrive here casually. Something in you moved before your mind could explain it. Something older than your latest worry, deeper than your daily routines, quieter than your ordinary thoughts recognized a signal and followed it here. That matters more than you realize, because most people move through life believing that what reaches them is random. They think they click on things by accident. They think certain words find them at the right moment because of coincidence, because of mood, because of some loose chain of events too ordinary to question. But there are moments when reality arranges itself with a precision so subtle that the mind misses it while the deeper self immediately knows. This is one of those moments. You have felt this before, even if you did not have language for it. A sentence finding you when your inner world was on the verge of collapse. A strange stillness settling over you in the middle of noise. A dream that stayed with you longer than logic could justify. A coincidence so exact it felt less like chance and more like contact. Those moments were not empty. They were not decorative little mysteries scattered through your life for no reason. They were fragments, signals, partial transmissions arriving before you were ready to receive the full message. And now something in your field has changed enough that what used to arrive in fragments can begin to arrive in form. That is why this moment carries weight. Not because these words are magical by themselves, not because someone outside you has decided to grant you a revelation, but because readiness is real. Readiness is not just desire. It is not the desperate wanting that appears when life becomes uncomfortable enough to force you into searching. Real readiness is quieter than that. It happens when your inner world has been stretched by enough endings, enough silence, enough unanswered questions, enough invisible pressure that a deeper threshold begins to open. And once that threshold opens, the things you were unable to hear before start becoming unmistakable. Maybe that is what has been happening to you lately. Maybe the life you built your attention around has started to feel thinner than it used to. Maybe the things that once distracted you no longer reach you in the same way. Maybe even your goals have begun to feel strange in your hands, as if the version of you that wanted them is no longer exactly the version that is standing here now. That sensation can be disorienting if you interpret it from the surface. It can make you think you are losing motivation, losing certainty, losing your grip. But sometimes what feels like disconnection is actually refinement. Sometimes the noise has to lose its power before the signal can become clear. And there has been noise, hasn't there? Not only in the world around you, but inside you. Old fears repeating themselves with different faces. Old stories trying to keep their position in your identity. Old emotional weather returning just when you thought you had moved beyond it. This is what makes true inner change so difficult to recognize while it is happening. From the inside, transformation rarely feels dramatic in a clean and obvious way. Often it feels like confusion. Often it feels like standing between two versions of reality, no longer fully at home in the old one but not yet stable in the new one. Often it feels like being unable to explain to other people what is changing because the shift is happening beneath the level of visible evidence. But that does not mean nothing is happening. It means the movement is foundational. There is a field beneath appearances, beneath events, beneath the identities people defend and the roles they perform. Whether you have called it intuition, energy, consciousness, divine intelligence, pattern, resonance, or something you still cannot name, you have felt it. You have felt that there is more moving through this life than what can be measured by ordinary attention. You have sensed that your experiences were carrying messages larger than the events themselves, and you were right to sense that. The problem was never that reality was silent. The problem was that the surface level of life is loud. It trains you to react before you listen. It trains you to analyze before you feel. It trains you to call something meaningless just because it does not arrive in the language you were taught to trust. But reality has many languages. It speaks in repetition. It speaks in removal. It speaks in tension. It speaks in sudden clarity. It speaks in the strange way a chapter can begin ending before your mind is willing to admit that it is over. It speaks in the relationships that leave just as you are becoming unable to remain who you were inside them. It speaks in the restlessness that rises when your current life can no longer contain your emerging self. It speaks in delays that frustrate the part of you that wants immediate answers while quietly preparing the part of you that could not yet hold what was coming. This is how the deeper field has always communicated with you. Not always through direct explanation, but through pattern, pressure, timing, contrast, and unmistakable internal recognition. That recognition is important, because part of you has known for a long time that something was trying to get through. Maybe you felt it in the hours when everything became unexpectedly still. Maybe you felt it after a loss that should have broken you more completely than it did, but instead left behind a strange opening. Maybe you felt it in the moments when life seemed to remove what you thought you needed, and yet some deeper part of you refused to believe the story was over. That refusal was not denial. It was memory. It was the part of you that already understood there was more happening than appearances could explain. This is why your path may have felt so difficult to describe. You were not only living events, you were living interpretations, corrections, inner signals, emotional rehearsals, unfinished translations of something your conscious mind was still trying to catch up to. And when a person is in that kind of season, they often become hard on themselves. They ask why they are still restless, why they still feel in between, why certainty keeps moving just out of reach. They assume they are doing something wrong because clarity has not yet fully stabilized. But the deeper truth is that there are phases where life is not asking you for immediate certainty. It is asking you for increased sensitivity. It is asking you to notice what no longer fits, what no longer resonates, what no longer deserves the authority it once held over your nervous system, your choices, your identity. That kind of noticing is not small. It is the beginning of a new relationship with reality. Because the moment you stop assuming that everything happening to you is random, the structure of your life starts to look different. The ending you feared begins to reveal a pattern. The delay you resented begins to show intelligence. The silence you interpreted as abandonment begins to feel more like gestation. And once that shift begins, you can never fully return to the old level of perception. Something in you has already seen too much. Something in you has already felt the architecture behind the surface. So do not rush past what brought you here. Do not flatten this moment into ordinary consumption. Feel the precision of it. Feel the way something in you paused when these words began. Feel the part of you that is not merely curious but recognized. That recognition is the real threshold. Because curiosity can be casual, but recognition is never casual. Recognition means there is already resonance between your inner state and what is arriving now. Recognition means the message was not imposed on you. It means it matched something already active within you. It means a door opened from both sides at once. And here is why that matters. When the deeper field begins to reach you more clearly, it is not doing so just to comfort you. It is not only here to soothe your confusion or decorate your pain with beautiful language. It is trying to show you something specific. Something about the patterns you have been living. Something about the losses you have been trying to understand. Something about the waiting period that has seemed empty but was not empty at all. Something about the version of you that is beginning to emerge now that older structures are loosening their hold. The message has not been vague. It has been arriving in pieces because pieces were all you could hold. But that is changing. And because it is changing, you are about to see your life differently than you ever have before. You are about to understand that what felt like chaos was not always chaos. What felt like distance was not always absence. What felt like the field withholding was often the field calibrating, waiting for your inner state to become coherent enough to receive without distorting what was being given. There are truths that arrive too early and become fear. There are answers that arrive before the nervous system is ready and become pressure instead of liberation. So your life does not only consider what you want to know, it responds to what you are capable of holding. And if you have been brought here now, then something in you has strengthened. Something in you has matured beneath the surface. Something in you is finally able to hear what your earlier self would have turned into confusion, fantasy, or doubt. So let this land in the quietest part of you. You are not late to your unfolding. You are not being ignored by reality. You are not standing outside the deeper conversation of your life, hoping to be included. You have been inside that conversation the entire time. The signs, the pauses, the dissolving structures, the inexplicable pull towards something more. All of it has been part of a dialogue underway. And now the dialogue is becoming clearer. Now the field is moving from hint to revelation. Now the patterns are close enough to read. The only question is whether you are willing to look at your life not as a collection of disconnected events, but as a precise response to the frequency you have been living from. Because once you see that, everything begins to rearrange, and what the field has been trying to tell you will stop sounding abstract. It will become personal, unmistakable, and impossible to unhear. What the field has been trying to show you was never limited to a single message, a single sign, or a single dramatic turning point. It has been speaking through the structure of your life itself, through what stayed and what could not stay, through what opened easily and what refused to move no matter how hard you pushed, through the strange contrast between the things that drained you even when they looked right on paper and the things that awakened you before you had any logical reason to trust them. This is how the deeper intelligence of reality communicates. Not only through ideas but through resonance. Not only through what appears but through what consistently aligns, consistently resists, consistently returns, or consistently dissolves the moment you try to build your future around it. Most people are taught to interpret reality in a very narrow way. They look at what happens and reduce it to surface cause. They say this worked because of timing. This failed because of bad luck. This ended because it was weak. This delay means nothing is happening. But the field does not operate on that level alone. Beneath the visible chain of events, there is another kind of logic at work. A logic that responds not just to your actions, but to the deeper pattern of energy through which those actions are taken. That is why two people can say the same words, pursue the same goal, even make the same move, and yet receive completely different outcomes. The field is not only reading what is being done, it is reading from where it is being done. It is reading coherence. It is reading contradiction. It is reading whether your inner state is unified or split, whether your life is being moved by living clarity or by fear wearing the costume of intention. That is the part people resist, because it changes the entire story. It means your life is not merely a sequence of events happening to you from the outside. It means what arrives, what lingers, what breaks down, and what begins reorganizing is deeply connected to the signal you are living inside. Not the signal you perform for others, not the version of yourself you describe when you want to sound certain. The actual signal, the emotional atmosphere you return to when no one is watching, the assumptions your body still carries, the level of self-trust or self-betrayal hidden beneath your daily choices. The field responds to that deeper level with extraordinary precision. This is why your patterns have been such honest teachers. Think about the things that repeated in your life long after you decided you were finished with them. The same emotional dynamic with a different face. The same disappointment wearing a new name. The same contraction appearing at the edge of change. It is easy to call that punishment or bad luck when you do not understand resonance. But repetition is often the field's clearest form of feedback. It is not mocking you. It is not trapping you. It is showing you the frequency that is still active. It is reflecting the internal blueprint that has not yet been fully revised. Until the signal changes, the reflection remains loyal to the signal, even when your conscious mind is begging for a different result. And the opposite is true as well. The moments of ease, the moments when something arrived with almost unsettling precision. The moments when the right conversation happened at the exact hour your inner world was prepared for it. The moments when life opened so naturally you barely had to force anything at all. Those were not random rewards handed out by chance. Those were coherence events. Those were moments when your internal state and the possibilities around you entered agreement. Those were moments when you were no longer asking from fragmentation, chasing from fear, or gripping from scarcity. Even if only briefly, you were broadcasting something cleaner, and the field responded the way it always does. It mirrored back the version of reality that matched the signal being emitted in that moment. This is why the field has been trying to show you that your life is more responsive than you think. Not instantly obedient to every wish, not mechanically controlled by positive language, but responsive in the deeper sense. Responsive to your baseline state, responsive to where you observe from, responsive to whether you are building from sufficiency or from deficiency, from trust or from panic, from expanded identity or from wounded repetition. People often want the field to confirm their preferences while leaving their internal frequency untouched. But that is not how this works. The field is not taking requests from the loudest part of the mind. It is answering the deeper instruction carried in the whole system. That is why loss has carried such a complicated feeling for you. Because part of you knew, even while grieving, that not everything leaving was wrong. Not everything dissolving was destruction. Some endings wounded your expectations more than your soul. Some losses hurt not because they belong to your future, but because they belong to your old certainty. And there is a difference. A painful difference, but a liberating one when you finally see it clearly. The field has been showing you again and again that emptiness is not always punishment. Sometimes emptiness is charged space. Sometimes what disappears is not just gone. Sometimes it is making room in a structure that could not hold both, the old frequency and the new possibility at the same time. This is the part many people never understand. They want to receive while remaining full of what no longer fits. Full of expired attachments, full of inherited narratives, full of identities built for survival rather than expansion, full of obligations to versions of themselves they have already outgrown. Then they wonder why the next chapter feels delayed. But the field does not pour the new into a container still organized around the old. It begins by loosening what cannot travel forward. It creates separation where there has been false fusion. It creates slunts where there has been too much noise. It removes artificial support so that deeper alignment can become visible. What looks like removal on the surface is often reorganization at the structural level. There was once a musician who lived in a city where every street was crowded with noise. He had spent years mastering an instrument he loved, and because he loved it, he played everywhere. He played in markets, in gatherings, in rooms where people barely listened, in spaces so loud that his music had to compete just to survive. Over time, he became skilled, but he also became strained. He started playing harder, louder, with more force than beauty because he believed volume was the same as power. The crowds praised him when he could overpower the noise, so he mistook that struggle for mastery. Then one year the city changed. The market where he played closed. The gatherings stopped inviting him. Even the familiar rooms fell silent one by one until he found himself alone with the instrument he no longer knew how to hear gently. At first he thought life had betrayed him. He thought the silence meant rejection. He thought the collapse of all those familiar places meant his gift had been wasted or taken away. But in that forced quiet, something unexpected happened. For the first time in years, he could hear the true tone of the instrument. Not the strained version he had learned to produce under pressure, but the actual depth of it. He began to notice where his playing had become reactive, where force had replaced sensitivity, where performance had replaced listening. And the more he listened, the more he realized the silence had not stolen his music. It had returned him to it. The city had not closed against him. It had removed the noise he had mistaken for purpose. Months later, when he played again, the sound was different. Softer in effort, stronger in presence, more exact, more alive. It no longer needed to fight the room because it came from a deeper source than urgency. And the people who heard it now were not just impressed. They were moved. Your life has been doing something similar. Certain spaces had to close so you could hear what your own signal actually sounds like, without the pressure to perform, please, prove, chase, or survive old emotional weather. Certain invitations had to end so your identity would stop being built around environments that rewarded a frequency you were no longer meant to live from. Certain delays had to hold because speed would have carried the old pattern into the new chapter. The field was not merely denying you movement. It was protecting the next form of your life from being filled with the same distorted tone that kept exhausting you before. Once you begin to see this, your entire relationship with your past starts changing. You stop reducing everything to success or failure. You stop calling every closure a mistake. You stop assuming every difficult period means something is wrong with you. Instead, you begin asking a more precise question. What was this season revealing about my signal? What did this repetition expose about the frequency I had normalized? What did this ending make room for that I could not yet imagine while I was still clinging to what had to leave? Those questions are different from ordinary self-analysis because they are not built on blame. They are built on interpretation, and interpretation is powerful because the moment your interpretation changes, your inner position changes. The moment your inner position changes, the way you meet the field changes with it. That is why what the field has been trying to show you is not merely that life is mysterious. It is that life is responsive, it is structured, it is mirroring more than your surface intentions. Every time you called yourself stuck while secretly remaining loyal to an old fear, the field showed you the contradiction. Every time you claimed you wanted expansion while organizing your choices around emotional safety, the field reflected that split. Every time you moved from a cleaner, steadier, more coherent state, even briefly, life revealed a different texture, a different rhythm, a different set of openings. It has been teaching you the same principle in dozens of forms. The signal matters. The observing position matters. The state from which you live matters more than the stories you tell about what you deserve. And yet this should not make you harsh with yourself. It should make you honest in a gentler way. Because the field has not been exposing your contradictions to shame you. It has been exposing them so you can stop calling them your destiny. There is freedom in that, enormous freedom. If your life were only random, then your suffering would be meaningless. If your repetitions were only bad luck, then your power would be thin and accidental. But if reality has been showing you where your coherence breaks, where your energy fragments, where your old story still hijacks your observing position, then your future is not sealed. It is adjustable. It is alive. It can change when the signal changes. That is the threshold you are approaching now. Not the threshold of collecting more concepts, but the threshold of response. Because understanding that the field has been speaking through patterns is only the beginning. Seeing that your losses were clearing and your repetitions were feedback is only the first layer of liberation. The deeper question is what happens when you stop arguing with the mirror and begin changing what stands before it. What happens when you stop asking life to prove you are safe before you become coherent enough to receive differently? What happens when you stop treating your current frequency like a fixed identity and start recognizing it as a signal that can be refined, strengthened, and consciously chosen? That is where this becomes more than insight. That is where this becomes activation. And once that activation begins, the field does not need to find a new way to speak to you. It will simply start sounding clearer because you have finally become ready to answer. Then this is the part where everything becomes real. Not theoretically real. Not emotionally impressive for a moment and then forgotten by tomorrow. Real in the way that changes how you breathe when you wake up. Real in the way that changes what you allow to define you. Real in the way that quietly but permanently alters the signal you send into every room, every decision, every relationship, every ordinary hour of your life. Because understanding the field is one thing, living in a way that lets the field answer you differently is another. And that second part is where your power actually begins. There is a temptation after a moment of recognition to treat transformation like a peak, to think that if you feel it strongly enough once, if the insight lands deeply enough once, if the energy shifts intensely enough once, then the rest will take care of itself. But that is not how deeper change stabilizes. The field may respond to thresholds, yes, but your lived reality responds to baseline. Not only to the moments when you feel elevated, clear, expansive, and almost untouchable. It responds to the version of you that returns on ordinary mornings. It responds to the way you interpret silence when no one is affirming you. It responds to the emotional state you rehearse when life becomes uncertain again. It responds to the frequency you choose not once at your highest point, but repeatedly, especially when the old one tries to reclaim you. That is where many people misunderstand what it means to change the signal. They think it means becoming someone who never feels fear, never drifts, never gets pulled back into old patterns, never has a hard day, never hears the old narrative trying to make itself sound like truth again. But frequency is not perfection. Coherence is not the absence of challenge. It is the capacity to return. It is the ability to notice when your inner state has dropped into contraction and to consciously choose, with growing speed and growing gentleness, not to build your identity there. That is what strengthens the field around you. Not pretending to be beyond struggle, but refusing to mistake every passing emotional weather system for who you are. This matters because the field does not need you to become superhuman. It needs you to become honest enough to recognize the difference between a temporary state and a permanent self-concept. Honest enough to see when you are narrating from old evidence instead of present possibility. Honest enough to stop offering your biography as if it has final authority over your frequency. What happened to you matters. What shaped you matters. What you survived matters. But none of those things are required to remain the dominant broadcast of your life. The field is not checking your history to decide your future. It is responding to the signal you are living now. Let that become practical. The next time the old narrative appears, the one that says this always happens, nothing changes, people leave, things fail, life closes, opportunities pass you by, ask yourself a different question. Is this truth? Or is this memory speaking with the confidence of repetition? Because memory is persuasive. It borrows authority from familiarity. It tells you that what has happened often must continue happening. But the field is not governed by repetition alone. It is governed by resonance. And once resonance changes, repetition loses its throne. That is why changing your signal begins with refusing to let old familiarity masquerade as inevitability. This is also why your protection is not something external waiting to arrive. It is built from coherence. It is built from the moment you stop negotiating with what continually lowers you. It is built from the repeated choice to stop feeding states that distort your clarity, drain your energy, and shrink your sense of possibility. Many people want protection to mean that difficulty disappears. But deeper protection means something more powerful than that. It means low coherence stops finding a home in you. It means drama arrives and cannot anchor. It means fear passes through without becoming architecture. It means manipulation meets less confusion. Chaos meets less availability. And what once would have entangled you now struggles to land, because your inner structure is no longer organized around resonance with it. That shift does not happen because you say one powerful sentence and never look back. It happens because you begin treating your state as sacred. Not fragile, not theatrical, sacred. You begin noticing what affects your signal. The conversations that cloud it, the environments that scatter it, the habits that lower it, the thought loops that keep dragging your attention back into old fields of meaning. You stop acting as though everything deserves equal access to your nervous system. You stop behaving as though every impulse deserves belief, every emotion deserves a throne, every external event deserves the power to define your internal climate. This is not denial, it is discernment. It is the beginning of living like someone who understands that the signal matters. So pause here, not as performance, but as participation. Put your hand on your chest for a moment and feel the simple fact of your own presence. Feel that your life is not an idea. It is happening through a body, through breath, through sensation, through pulses of attention that become patterns over time. This matters because frequency is not just a concept floating above your life. It is embodied. It is carried in the breath you shorten when fear takes over. It is carried in the way your chest tightens around a story you have told too many times. It is carried in the way relief moves through you when you finally stop defending an outdated identity. You do not have to imagine your signal into existence. You are already broadcasting it. The question is whether you are willing to become conscious of what you keep transmitting. Take one slow breath and let it mean something. Not because breathing is magic by itself, but because attention reorganizes what it touches. Breathe in without rushing. Notice how quickly the mind wants to move on, label, control, interpret. Then exhale and let one layer loosen. One layer of certainty you no longer need. One layer of loyalty to an exhausted self-description. One layer of attachment to being the version of you that had to brace against life in order to survive it. You do not need to tear everything down at once. You do not need a dramatic reinvention by nightfall. You need willingness. You need a cleaner relationship with what you keep rehearsing. You need the courage to stop building tomorrow from the loudest fears of yesterday. Now say something inwardly or aloud that your old self would have doubted but your deeper self already recognizes. Something simple, something clean, something like, I do not belong to the frequency that kept diminishing me, or I am available for a different level of coherence now, or what reaches me next will meet the signal I choose today. The exact words matter less than the position they create. Because the point is not to perform confidence. The point is to interrupt the old broadcast and establish a new observing point, a new vantage, a new internal place from which the field can begin answering you differently. If resistance appears when you do that, do not panic. Resistance is not proof that you are pretending. Often it is proof that the old structure has been challenged. The body does not always welcome new possibility immediately, even when the soul has been asking for it for years. Sometimes resistance is simply old conditioning realizing it is no longer being obeyed automatically. Treat that moment with respect, not because the resistance should win, but because it is information. It shows you where your next return is needed. It shows you where your signal has been split. It gives you a precise place to practice becoming coherent instead of merely wishing to be. And that practice is everything. Because your life will not be built by one emotional high. It will be built by return. Return after distraction. Return after doubt. Return after a hard conversation. Return after an old trigger pulls at your edges. Return after you drift into the familiar contraction and catch yourself building meaning there again. Every return matters. Every return lays another line of coherence into your inner architecture. Every return teaches your system that the higher state is not an accident, not a visitor, not a rare exception. It is becoming home. That is how a new baseline is formed. Not with force, not with punishment, not with the exhausting demand to stay elevated every second. A real baseline emerges when you stop worshiping the drift and start respecting the return. You notice when you have slipped into the old story and instead of declaring the day ruined or the progress false, you simply come back. Again and again with increasing steadiness, increasing speed, increasing compassion. This is how the field learns the truth of your new signal. Through repetition that is alive, not repetition that is unconscious. Through small, coherent choices made so consistently that a different future begins to recognize you. And once that starts happening, something else becomes possible. Community stops being a casual social idea and begins becoming a field amplifier. Because when people who are each learning to live from greater coherence gather around the same truth, something intensifies. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a structural one. It becomes easier to remember what you know when you are no longer remembering alone. It becomes easier to stabilize a new state when others are also choosing it, naming it, reinforcing it, embodying it in their own lives. That is why shared recognition matters. That is why speaking your shift matters. Not because attention is the goal, but because coherence multiplies when it is witnessed. So if something in you has recognized itself here, let that recognition become visible. Give it form, state it clearly even if only in one sentence. Not as performance, but as anchoring. A simple declaration can matter because it turns a private insight into a lived signal. It tells your own system that the shift is no longer only being considered, it is being chosen. It says that what was once abstract is now entering the level of embodiment, and the field responds to embodiment differently than it responds to fantasy. This is also the moment to understand that you do not need to wait until everything in your outer life changes to begin living from a different frequency. That old bargain has delayed enough people for long enough. They say, once I see proof, I will trust. Once life gets easier, I will soften. Once the right person arrives, I will believe I am worthy. Once the path opens, I will stop bracing. But the field has been trying to show you the reverse. The path opens differently when the signal changes first. The evidence begins rearranging when the observing position is no longer organized around old scarcity, old fear, old self-concepts. This does not mean pretending your current reality is something it is not. It means refusing to let current evidence monopolize what you are allowed to become. And that is the deeper shift. You are no longer required to introduce yourself to reality through your wound. You are no longer required to let your past speak first every time a new possibility appears. You are no longer required to collapse the future from a vantage point built entirely out of memory. You can choose a different inner stance now. You can decide that your signal will no longer be drafted by what hurt you most. You can become a steadier transmitter of the life you are actually ready to receive. If you do that sincerely, something irreversible begins. Not because you become perfect, but because you become less available to what once defined you. Less available to collapse into the same meaning. Less available to call every pause rejection, every ending failure, every difficult moment a prophecy. And once that unavailability to the old frequency deepens, the field starts reflecting a different world. Sometimes gradually, sometimes all at once. Sometimes through one conversation, one opportunity, one release, one inner morning where you wake up and realize that the old signal is no longer running the room. That is how you know the transmission has become yours. Not when you can repeat the ideas beautifully, but when your nervous system begins responding from a different place. When your standards shift, when your attention becomes cleaner, when your choices become less negotiated with fear, when your sense of self is no longer constantly borrowed from old evidence. Then the field is no longer only telling you something, it is answering you. So carry this forward in a simple way. Guard your coherence without becoming rigid. Return without becoming dramatic. Choose your state without expecting immediate perfection. Let your new signal become familiar through use. Let your protection become visible through what no longer finds purchase in you. Let your future recognize you through the frequency you are brave enough to live now. Something has shifted. Even if quietly, even if invisibly, even if the full outer proof has not yet caught up. Something has shifted. You can feel it because part of you is no longer willing to go back to interpreting your life from the old position. Part of you knows too much now. Part of you has already begun remembering that the field was never silent, never absent, never indifferent. It was waiting for a cleaner answer from you. And now that answer is beginning to form. So let this be the truth you walk with. Your signal changes when you change. Your protection deepens when your coherence deepens. Your future opens differently when your identity stops kneeling to the past. The field is already listening. The question is no longer whether it speaks. The question is what it will begin echoing back now that you are finally becoming someone new enough to hear it.